Thank you so much if you are catching the replay. My name is MJ Allen. I am Head of Business Development and Partnerships here at Moxie AI. And welcome to our first webinar, How to Rebrand and Roll Out. So just a little quick, history about myself. Prior to my role at Moxie AI, I did some time over at Group Black. Group Black is the first of its kind media collective. They actually received $500 million from Procter & Gamble and Endeavors to basically get Black-owned media exposures and brand partnerships and things of that nature. So what I was tasked to do was to reach out to these Black-owned media companies and enroll them into the Group Black collective. Prior to Group Black, I did business development work for a shoppable video live e-commerce platform. I know that's a tongue twister, by the name of Extremely. And what I was tasked with at Extremely was to get early adopters using this platform, using this shoppable platform. So we see it now with like the TikTok shop and stuff like that. But a few years ago, before TikTok shop even was a thing, this shoppable video platform, which actually allows you to view the video and shop, I was in charge of getting some brands using that platform. Along with that, I created the very first ever Black-owned live shopping event for Black cosmetic companies. So I reached out to different brands like the Danessa Myricks and things of that nature to get these brands to basically, raise their hand like, yep, you can have our product, or we'll share those sales with you as long as, you can partner with a well-known, credible influencer to host these live events. So that was my thing. Biz dev is my jam. And we're going to go ahead and get started with why we are here right now. So joining me is Stephanie LaFlora. She is the creative director and founder of Moxie AI. And I must say myself, one of the best individuals to actually work with. I've been enjoying my time here at Moxie AI, and I'm going to shift things over to Steph so she can tell you about her journey and why she decided to create Moxie AI.
Thank you, MJ. I appreciate you. So Moxie really was born out of my own journey as a startup founder. I launched a company called Crown Hunt. And in the process of me doing that, I had to go through raising money and being in accelerators and talking with lots of other founders. I learned that my marketing background was a huge advantage as a startup founder. And it was something that a lot of other founders were missing. And agencies, as they traditionally exist, really weren't filling in this gap for this group for lots of reasons. And so people kept asking me what agency was working with Crown Hunt. And I decided to start my own in order to support these small businesses and startups, particularly ones with incredible stories to tell. Because the thing that I think that we do uniquely is creating really scroll-stopping visuals and stories that really anchor in the customer and the story of how the brand started in the first place. So let's hop right in. First, are you in the right place? Is this the right webinar for you if you're watching the replay? Let me give you a quick note of whether you should continue or not. Are you a startup founder or working at a startup? Do you own a small business? Are you a music artist? Music artist, whoa, where does that fit in? Well, music artists have incredible stories to tell as well, and they have some of the most fun brands. And so we actually do that as well. And then are you considering a rebrand or launching a brand for the first time? Because we're going to talk about how you can do that well and some common mistakes that people make. And the last one is you prefer fun webinars, not the run-of-the-mill, boring ones. We got this purple background popping. We got things going on. We're going to have a little swagger in the way we address things. And that's on purpose because this should be fun. All right, let's hop right into it. So First, I'm going to talk about when to rebrand. There are really common places where startups and small businesses are typically looking to rebrand. So I'll start with that, and then I'll talk about a few other factors. One is startups often begin with a great product. They are trying to solve a core problem that they've identified, and their whole thing, and I trust me, I understand this torturous experience of trying to get traction. So you just traction. That's all that matters. And in that space, a lot of times there isn't as much emphasis on branding. The whole point is to figure out how can you create a solution that solves a certain demographics problem and repeatedly. And so usually after that traction is really starting to happen, there's a rebrand that comes with that to really anchor the entire product and the experience in a story that people can really connect with. And then small businesses often have really great word of mouth. A lot of times their brand might be known well locally, but not necessarily nationally. And there's a lot of national opportunities for small businesses, especially with social media today. So how can we make your story more known online and in a digital format where it might be happening really, really well in person, but how do we capture that story and tell it online? And then I'm going to walk through these 3 bullet points, and then I'm going to take questions from MJ because she knows a lot of the common questions as a biz dev person that people ask. So one is, do you have an outdated brand image? You will know if you have an outdated brand image. Even if you don't know, I'm going to tell you the hack to figure it out right now. Go on social media. Instagram's a great choice. And look at companies that sell something similar to what you sell, whether it be a product or a service. Now, go to the ones that seem to be more attractive to you. Go to their page, look at the content they have. Look at if they have user-generated content. So they have people, their customers have created content and there's on their page. Look at how that content looks. Now look at your own social media. Your brand image can be okay in person and really outdated online. If it's outdated online, that is what people know you as. There's going to be many more people who interact with your brand online than people who interact with it in person or meet you personally. So if you, as the owner or founder, are really dynamic and you can crush it in person, you need to figure out how you can tell that story online when you're not there so people can still feel that same presence. The next time when to rebrand is when you've expanded your services or your target audience. This happens a lot where people will, as an owner, you learn, oh, okay, if we add this additional service or if we add this additional product, this starts to make a lot of sense for our brand and filling out that suite of services. The other piece is sometimes your target audience will change or you'll gain a new target audience. And so when that happens, you're really in a situation where you have the opportunity to tell more of a story, to make sure that people know that you've expanded your service, not just because it's listed on your website or because you say it in a sales call, but because it's actually part of your core DNA of your brand. And then the last is if you've had declining engagement or sales. A lot of times what happens when people are having declining engagement or sales is you're unaware of the fact that your target customer is being wooed and romanced online by brands that are similar to yours. And they're doing it with better messaging. They're doing it with better branding. They're doing it by telling a story that really grabs the attention of your customer. So if you aren't telling those same type, if you're not telling the story of your own, you can really miss out on sales because people don't know those things about you, even though your product may be as good or better. So I'm gonna pause there and see MJ, what questions you have related to when to rebrand.
Yeah. So one of the questions as a small business owner that I believe comes up is, what if my brand is telling the wrong story? Does that make sense for me to do a rebrand at that point?
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the questions that I have with that is like, how did you arrive at that story in the first place? So if it's telling the wrong story, is it because it's the old version of your brand? right? So like if you've expanded your services or your target audience, is it the wrong story because it's based on a previous service or product or a previous target audience that you used to serve and now you don't? Then yeah, you definitely need to rebrand to do that. But then also I think, what is the new story that needs to be told? And you need to be really aware of that. And it has to be anchored in your ideal customer and anchored in the actual solution that you provide. And when you get those two things right, that's when people really start to personally feel gravitated towards your brand and have some affinity for it.
Got it. Thank you so much for that.
Okay, I'm gonna move to the next. So that's when to rebrand. What about when not to rebrand? I have one big point here that I want to anchor on, and then I'll go through the others, and that is when you do not have a strong point of view. In today's marketing, brand, corporate landscape, you can't be Switzerland anymore. You can't not participate in hot button topics that are relevant to your industry. You don't have to talk about everything. I don't think you do, but you need to have a strong point of view. Just trying to be neutral and be for everybody and, oh yeah, we'll do that too, that doesn't really work. You have to have a strong point of view, because the people who are looking for that strong point of view will now feel attached to your product and your service because of that strong point of view. If you don't have that, you feel neutral, they'll just be attracted to whoever sounds more like them, whoever sounds more like what they're looking for. So you don't want to rebrand and make it pretty and make it look cool, but not have a strong point of view. And then there's a few other points. This number one, this is a big one. So you want the brand to feel, you should not rebrand when you want the brand to feel more like you. This happens all the time. And today, people are always creating their own personal brand and also their corporate brand. And it can be really challenging, honestly, to figure those two things out. But my advice would be, do not try to figure them out within the same brand. If you're figuring out your own personal brand and you have this company, figure out your own personal brand separate, and then keep working on delivering the experience that your customer needs and the solution that they're looking for. And then figure out your personal brand on the side and let that be a new brand that you can create. So instead shift everything based on your customer needs with your actual product. Doesn't mean you can't exist and your identity can't exist within your brand. It can be there, but it's not overarching. It is not the brand. You are a component of that brand story. Then the second one is kind of similar, but it's a little unique in that you have a new idea for a company. So maybe not a personal brand, but you have a new idea for another product or another service or something that you came up with. And you're like, well, I already got this company, I already got this whole legal setup. I'll just put them together and I'll figure out how to make it make sense together. People do that all the time. It's trash. It don't work. It really don't work. You need to separate, because if you have a unique audience and you have a unique solution and you have a unique a unique customer, then you need to separate that. But if you have, there are exceptions. So this is something that, like, I think this is something worth exploring. But again, if it's an entirely new idea and a new product and a new everything, then consider creating a separate product. And then the last one is if you're trying to cover up a crisis. If you have an issue that you need to address publicly, do it publicly. You gotta deal with it and be really own up to that moment and address it, and then separate that from the rebrand. Because what you don't want to do is have a rebrand look like a cover up. It's not going to help you. It's going to tarnish the rebrand anyway. So what you want to do instead is really address the issue head on and give it a little bit of space, and then do a rebrand that reflects those new values. So I'm gonna pause there and see what questions MJ has for when not to rebrand.
Definitely. So, being a small business owner, let's theoretically say that I currently have what would be considered a hero product, right? So I have I'm a cosmetic brand, I have a lippy, and it has a really good formula. However, with serving my current ideal client. I want to do a shampoo. I know I can come up with a really good formula for a shampoo. Would I be creating a separate brand, or how am I still able to really service this ICP?
Yeah, I love that question because I think it's a situation people commonly find themselves in. And I'll give you an example of when it makes sense and when it doesn't. So there's a company by the name of Billie, Billie, love their products. They started off with razors. They had the hero product of the razors. Their razors were unique because they had a subscription, but they also have razors that like really work. I feel like women's razors like never work, but this is one that actually works. Then they expanded and they added lip gloss, they added some soap and some other like care products, self-care products. And that worked out well for them because they had really positioned themselves. Again, this goes back to the core brand. They had really positioned themselves as a solution for common home care, self-care products that need to be better. Like razors just need to be better. Like it doesn't make sense to be able to buy 10 razors and 3 of them work, right? And so they had already kind of positioned themselves in that way. So expanding their product offering still met the same customers' needs, and it still solved a similar higher problem. So I think one of the questions in that situation is there a higher level core problem that you want to solve? I'll give you an example. Crown Hunt's high level core problem is making life easier for people with curly hair. There's a lot of things you can do to make life easier for people with curly hair. The question would be, have I anchored my branding in that? And if I have, then that allows for me to add to that. If I haven't, then I need to double down on some high level messaging that allows me to expand my products. But there's sometimes the audience is different. Sometimes the core product feels way too separate. And if you don't like create this house to fit it all under, it can be a mess. And I think there's some people who have done a great job of addressing the same customer, but then also having separate businesses. So Rihanna is a good example. She has the makeup, but then she also has the lingerie. Now the makeup and the lingerie customers, I know because I'm one of them, right? Same people. But at the same time, imagine trying to sell those products on the same social media, trying to sell them on the same websites, trying to partner with businesses. It's a lot more clean to have it as separate. And your customers that love what you built over here, if they are that same ICP, they will go over there and they will buy it too. Kardashian is another incredible example. People have their opinions about them, but they are brilliant at marketing. So yeah, so that's my 2 cents on that. All right. So I'm going to go through 2 case studies. One that I think is a rebrand done well, and one that I think is a rebrand could have done better. And this first one is Dunkin' Donuts. I think they did a good job. So they actually rebranded back in 2018, and their goal, which I'll start over here, was actually to get new customers and to modernize their brand. And the new customers was really about their brand had been so anchored in donuts that it was like I don't like donuts. My husband loves donuts. He does not understand, nor will he ever understand that I don't like donuts. He literally buys me donuts all the time. And then it's just like, why didn't you eat the donuts? I'm like, I don't know how many times I have to tell you I don't like donuts. Anyway, the donuts, because of that name, someone like me, I'm not going to Dunkin' Donuts because I don't want donuts. And they have this whole menu of other things, but because their brand is so anchored in that particular product, again, this is kind of going back to I've added products. Maybe I should rebrand because there's a larger suite of things that I want for people to associate with my brand and not just that single thing. So in this case, they dropped the donuts and they just called themselves Dunkin'. And then in terms of their rollout, they did something that I think is really important is they had sweeping changes across. both their digital spaces and their physical spaces. So they did things like adding mobile orders, and also changing their operations within the store so that they could have faster service. So that's that in-person experience, but also there's a digital experience there as well. And then they also did $100 million brick and mortar redesign. So inside the store felt different. This is really important. You do not want a rebrand to feel only cosmetic, because that doesn't feel like it's about, unless your product is like a visual product and you're changing the visual of that product, that's a little different. But in general, you don't want a rebrand to be purely cosmetic. You want there to be some anchoring experience, the ingredients change, the process, something is also becoming more convenient, that reflects that brand change. And then the other thing is they really communicated it well. Like they had press releases, they broke down the why behind their rebrand for their customers, they broke it down for their stakeholders, and that just allows for things to be smooth. You don't want people to be confused when you rebrand. And so there's a good amount of communication that should go with it, even if it feels like, oh, it'll be fine. Just do it. It will help. And you want to make sure you capture that messaging shift. So then the other thing I wanted to highlight here, in addition to they kept their colors, they changed the font just a little bit, such a subtle change on the font that I think most people probably wouldn't even notice, but it was slightly more modern. Obviously they have, promos that they're doing now with big name celebrities and young celebrities too. You see, even with their most recent promo with Ben Affleck and Ice Spice, they're kind of doing a generational, they have range here, right? With that. And then their outcomes from doing these types of things from 2017 to 2019, their stock price actually increased by 23%, which is a huge win for the company and for all those stakeholders. So that's the breakdown of that. I'm going to move on to the next one, and then we'll do questions around these different case studies after. All right. So the next case study I have is with Twitter, or X. So there's a lot of opinions around this one. I think in the end, it's going to figure out its way, but we're time boxing this, and we're considering the rebrand from Twitter to X and how that went down. And I think I want to anchor in the goals and then the stated future of the product to talk about why I feel this was not a good rebrand. Their goals are, that they stated, was really to do this hype first strategy, and then deliver the product later. There are times where that can work, where you just generate a lot of buzz, you get people talking, maybe even a little bit of controversy, depending on the type of brand that you have. And then you roll out this product later because everybody's talking about you and they want to see what's going to come of it. That's not necessarily my style, but I don't think that's inherently a bad strategy, so long as the hype matches the desired emotion, right, for your product. And I'll talk more about that in a second. The second thing is they wanted to prepare for more revenue streams. And that, I think, is the basis of my argument that this rollout was not a good one. They want to create an everything platform that allows users to do things like banking, e-commerce, and expanded social media features. That's a quote from Elon Musk. I don't know exactly what that means, but I do know that things like banking and e-commerce are activities where users care a lot about security and to have a safe space where they feel like that their data will be managed well. And this rollout that they have from the beginning, from Elon Musk purchasing Twitter, originally called Twitter, and the whole drama around that, to giving people their accounts back that had been disabled because they violated the community guidelines. All of those things create this chaotic environment. There's lots of articles that have been published around the type of negative communications that have increased on Twitter as a result of some of these decisions. And so that really eliminated the safe guardrails that you would need and want and expect if you're going to do something like banking on social media, which is in itself a very ambitious goal. But even if that were going to happen, you would need the faith in the platform in order to do that. So I think that the rollout that they had and their goals, their stated goals, are in conflict. Another thing was just poor communication. I don't think many people, including the employees at the company, really knew a lot about what was going on. Obviously, they had a lot of cultural shifts internally and layoffs, and that became part of the story of the rebrand, which is not something that you want. And then I would just say that the outcomes here that they had really was Musk took the company private, so we're not able to know exactly what happened in terms of revenue, but they did lose users and advertisers on the platform. And again, my main point here is that if the goal is to go towards this product that would be something that requires a lot of trust, then the rebrand should have been something that make people feel more secure. And X and the like sloppiness of the rollout and some of the choices that the corporation made did not do that. So I'm going to stop here for a second and get questions around either one of these case studies.
Yeah, I think a really good question would be, when is a name change necessary?
Mm. I mean, I think that a name change should, again, everything goes back to the ideal customer and everything goes back to the product itself. So the product doesn't always, it's not always reflected in the name. A crown hunt I did on purpose. I will never change that name. I love that name so much. I say that now, but I really do think I won't, because it's about the hunt for the crown, your hair. And it's like there's dignity in it. It's a crown, like it's just so nail on head of what the product is that I think that that really works. But an example of a name change that we did, Moxie used to be called Takeoff. And Moxie is a word that essentially means audacity, tenacity, the will to make something happen. And I think that's exactly what our core customers, startup owners, founders, small business owners, musicians, that's what they have. They have a lot of moxie. They are going up against the grain and they are trying to create something with their will and their vision that doesn't exist. And so I think that that really reflects that core identity of our customer. So I think a name change can be great when it reflects your customer and maybe even is something that they would self-identify with. I think also, like I said with Crown Hunt, if the product, it really sounds like I get what your product is just from the name, that's always great, but that's not always possible. Those are great ones. When I think it's ambiguous why the name changed, or if it just seems cool, I like cool stuff. I love cool stuff. I love mystique. I love hype. I love all that. I really do. But if it's just that, your customers will see through that and it'll fall flat. And there will be some future time where you have hype plus a great product and people won't assume that that's what's happening. You don't want that, right? You never want to be the fire festival of rebrands. so you gotta protect that and make sure that you're not just doing stuff because you like it. And with the X, the only explanation that I've heard as to why I went from Twitter to X is that X is something that Elon Musk likes a lot. Apparently, back in the day, he wanted to change PayPal to X, but the brand affinity for PayPal was too high, so he didn't win that battle. And then obviously SpaceX is in there, and I think his child's name has X in it. So it's his personal thing. And I like cool things too, but it always has to anchor in your product and anchor in your customer. All right. MJ.
All right, I will hop in here. So let's talk about the future of your brand. So in terms of, whether or not if you're catching the replay, what I would strongly suggest is scheduling a discovery chat with me so we can actually talk about, is a rebrand necessary? Is this something that, you've been thinking about for quite some time, especially if you've joined us live and you signed up and registered for this webinar. Let's hop on a quick chat. Let's talk about it. With doing that, we are also offering 10% off our brand package for within the next 14 days. So you want to take advantage of getting some time scheduled with me. You can email me at mj@moxieaibrands.com, but I would love to chat about what a rebrand would look like for your business more specifically.
Yeah, and on the replay, we'll put the links
Yes.
to book a meeting with MJ in there as well. So if you're watching the replay right now, there should be a link right below. Okay. And then the last thing I just wanted to mention here is our next webinar. So in addition to branding, we also help organizations identify the right partners for them, create media packages, a media kit that articulates their story in a way that makes people want to collaborate with them. And then actually we even help them figure out the right deal structure in order for them to be able to lock in these deals and have it be advantageous for both parties. So that is something else that we do. There will be a link also underneath for you to register for the upcoming webinar, which happens on November 29th. And yeah, I think that's what we got today. So I hope that you gained some knowledge from this and had a little bit of fun, and we'll see you next time.